Hello, and welcome to the MacGuffin podcast. I'm Spencer.
I'm John.
And what are we going to be talking about on this special occasion?
We're going to be talking about some of the people behind Night of the Creeps, the movie that you are about to be watching there at the Grand Illusion Cinema.
Sweet.
And we're going to start it off by talking about the writer and director of Night of the Creeps, Fred Dekker.
Very cool.
I think he is one of the more underrated directors in the horror genre.
Very talented director and a very good writer, too. He's got some very nice writer credits on his
resume.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he had a string of bad luck with some bombs throughout his career, but he started off back in 1986 with the story credit for the film House, which was a Sean Cunningham production, the guy who directed Friday the 13th, and it was about like a Vietnam vet who's in his house and has some flashbacks. There's some ghosts, you know, nice simple premise, which Dekker originally planned on directing himself, but decided to sell it instead, get his first credit out there.
Yeah, it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's an okay movie. Who knows how it would have turned out if Dekker directed it? Probably better from what we'd later see. That same year in '86, we got his directorial debut with Night of the Creeps, which you're about to watch.
Yeah.
And I love Night of the Creeps. I think it is one of the most fun horror movies of all time. It's just a great comedy, a lot of great gore, splatter effects, great acting by the likes of Tom Atkins, giving one of his best performances, Jason Lively.
Again, it was written by
Dekker as well.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it shows, you know, growth by him, I think, because it's a nice, well-rounded project. It's just fun. I mean, that's sort of the bottom line of it to me.
Yeah, and it's also pretty original, especially for the 80s, which were so full of slashers. I mean, alien slugs come down and they get loose, and when they get in your mouth they turn you into a zombie, and then they lay eggs in your head, and then when the eggs hatch your head explodes and more slugs go out. Like, it's pretty crazy. And
you can clearly see the influence on like people like James Gunn.
Yeah, Slither was pretty much a remake of Night of the Creeps, but not as good, I didn't think. But unfortunately, Night of the Creeps, bomb at the box office.
Yeah, I mean, $5 million it cost to make, made almost $600,000.
Oh, too bad. Luckily, he was working on his next project already when Night of the Creeps was bombing in theaters. He was making The Monster Squad, which came out in 1987.
I'll admit I was sort of late on the Monster Squad bandwagon, but I've since seen it, and it's a fun film.
It is a lot of fun. It was co-written with Shane Black, who would later go to great acclaim for writing Lethal Weapon and directing Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So one of the biggest screenwriters of the 80s worked on this movie, and it's just this great homage, like where Night of the Creeps was an homage to kind of every horror genre is all mushed together. The Monster Squad is an homage to like the Little Rascals or Our Gang, you know, mixed with the classic Universal monsters.
Yeah. Which is amazing. I mean, it's good to see that sort of in a different sort of light.
Exactly, and with 80s special effects. Like, the monsters look great. I would say the werewolf in the Monster Squad is my favorite two-legged werewolf. John Grease, who went on to play Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite, gives a great performance as the werewolf. The actor who plays Dracula, I think, is one of the scariest Draculas I've seen on film. Very intimidating, especially when you have to...
I would argue that's partially because there aren't very many good Draculas on film, but nevertheless, we'll digress. It's a cool film. You should absolutely check it out.
Especially good for 80s fans of The Goonies. It's pretty much The Goonies with shotguns fighting monsters.
That's what led it to me, and my science project sort of in that same vein, too.
But once again, bombed.
Yep.
Both of these movies, is the two that he directed, big cult classics. Nobody really saw them until they came out on home video and were building up some steam during the 90s.
I kind of feel like that's the theme of his career as a director. Ahead of the curve with his ideas.
We should make mention that both of these movies were unavailable on DVD for a very long time. They were two of the most requested titles. Monster Squad didn't come out until 2007. Night of the Creeps didn't come out till last year on DVD and Blu-ray. They're both out on. Great special editions, commentaries, documentaries, all sorts of fun goodies. And then, so after the Monster Squad, after two bombs in a row, he was kind of, you know, just moving around for a while, writing, working in some TV. He had...
You're not going to immediately talk about If Looks Could Kill, which he wrote, starring Richard Grieco, coming off of 21 Jump Street. I mean... Yeah,
to be fair, he only got the story credit. His original, I'm sure, brilliant script could have been rewritten by a lot of people.
Yeah, if you're a Richard Grieco fan, you know, that's going to be right up your alley. Like a high school student who becomes like a secret agent.
Yeah, like a spy thriller. And then that was followed up with the story credit for Ricochet, an early role for Denzel Washington.
And John Lithgow. John Lithgow sort of starting off, I don't don't know if it was his first evil dude role, but
that's true. That was before Raising Cain and later Dexter.
It was a very solid one. And Kevin Pollak was in that too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then also in that time, between 89 and 92, he wrote 5 episodes of Tales from the Crypt, directed
Great
one
show.
as well.
Love that show.
One of the ones he wrote was the classic And All Through the House, which was about the killer Santa Claus. Very Larry Drake playing the crazy Santa Claus. And then he followed that up with what was unfortunately his last directorial outing, and that was RoboCop 3 in 1993. Now, this one, we can't give Fred Dekker a pass. Can we? RoboCop?
I can.
Really?
Because I don't hate it. As actually, like, I have this weird affinity for certain scenes in that movie. I think personally, I like the end sequence of that RoboCop amongst the best of all the RoboCop movies. I think the scene where he's flying through Detroit at the last minute, it's just, I mean, it's cheesy, it's schmaltzy, but I like it. And you know, I like that there's certainly growth to the RoboCop character. I mean, the first 2 movies were very much the same, and this one sort of branched out into be sort of understanding, like, the lower class or whatever, sort of. I mean, I personally don't hate it. I mean, it's not great. Don't get me
I think
wrong,
you might be in the minority, but maybe
I'm definitely in the minority.
After hearing this little pitch and my love of Fred Dekker, I will relook at RoboCop 3.
I'm not claiming it's a great film, but I think it's overly hated on.
But we should also mention it was co-written with Frank Miller, and this was his big movie that he gave up on Hollywood for years, and he refused to let them make his movies after that.
I mean, maybe there's something that the studio wouldn't let him do that would have made it.
Yeah, well, it was also the first PG-13 RoboCop movie. Peter Weller didn't return for the first time. So, and once again, a bomb.
Yeah.
And after that, unfortunately, Fred Dekker disappeared for quite a long time.
Pretty much, yeah.
He produced and wrote on Enterprise, the most recent Star Trek TV show, for a couple years. But that series, you know, was canceled, didn't get the ratings that the studio was looking for.
I mean, really, that's sadly it. Like,
I know. But right now it seems like it's the perfect time for Fred Dekker. I mean, these movies coming out, they've been big sellers. I mean, The Monster Squad was one of the biggest sellers that year. Night of the Creeps has been selling really well.
Even more than just the success of the DVD of Monster Squad is supposedly they're remaking Monster Squad in 2012, which, I mean, he's not going to be involved except with the characters, it looks like, at this point.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe that'll spur a resurgence in interest in his movies.
That's the one thing. I am not excited at all about this Monster Squad remake. I mean, it's produced by Michael Bay and Platinum Dunes. I could just care less.
I mean, honestly, he's basically disappeared for 10 years. I mean, that's a shame because
he's so inventive and such an original voice as far as like horror comedy. I mean, that's such a hard thing to pull off, and he pulled it off twice really well. And also, I mean, his movies just stay true to life. I don't know. There's just something about the Monster Squad, the kids in that movie calling each other, you know, like and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know.
It is one of the sort of quintessential 80s movies.
And it's a harsh movie, you know, but it's got some great monsters. The creature from the Black Lagoon in that movie looks amazing. Probably the best that monster's looked on film.
It could be interesting to see what they can do with 20th century sort of.
It'll be CG and blood. And Stan Winston's dead.
You might be right. You might be right, but I don't know.
Yeah, all I can hope for is that Fred Dekker gets going on some original projects. Since the popularity of the DVDs, he's been saying ideas maybe there could be a Monster Squad sequel. With the remake, that's probably less likely, but he also thrown out maybe a Night of the Creeps sequel, which I don't really see. The way Night of the Creeps ended, some of the main characters who were the most interesting characters of the movie wouldn't be able to come back for a sequel.
It's also kind of tough to start a sequel like 20, 30 years after the fact. So.
And also a sequel to a bomb.
Yeah.
But there you have the career of Fred Dekker. He is honestly one of my favorite directors, even though it was just those two really solid movies. I mean, he showed so much with those two movies.
Decent one, in my opinion.
I think, you know, more people need to discover him. Go out and get those DVDs and Blu-rays, Night of the Creeps and Monster Squad.
Right down the street from Scarecrow, so after the screening's over, just walk on down.
And you can find all of our podcasts, or some reviews, original content videos, all of our contact info at MacGuffinPodcast.com. We have a new podcast go up every Tuesday.
I mean, it's on iTunes, on Zune, Miro, YouTube, pretty much anywhere you can get it.
Yeah.
And want it.
And let us know what you think of Fred Dekker, what you thought of this here screening tonight, MacGuffinPodcast.com.
T-1000 can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Magneto can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Even Zod can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. It's tight, don't even try to bite the side of style. Mr. Spock can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. The Wrath of Khan can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. The Borg can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Because I've got space game and it feels alright.